Alright, nothing available right at the start for the scan. Quickly, PB is going to go ahead and find us some aluminum and some carbon and some iron. Pretty nice find for Pbhead right away. UnbreakableDrew, on the other hand, he scouted an entirely different direction, has found a nice combination of aluminum, iron, and water tiles all right next to each other. And he really hasn't found any silicon yet, but he has definitely found some foundable locations. He's probably going to want to get established fairly quickly. Since Pbhead has already managed to put his base down, really no point in waiting around for Drew. If he's found something usable, he's going to want to make use of it as soon as he possibly can. He's actually going to dump an expansive colony on top of all that giant aluminum patch that he had found and go for these iron aluminum tiles, it looks like, or at least one of them. And then is it going to be a couple of steel mills coming down as well to accompany it? It is. So steel production right off the bat for UnbreakableDrew. Whereas Pbhead, he has established the very, very straightforward scavenger, 2 carbon tiles, 1 aluminum tile. He's going to expand. I expect to see him take this water tile in particular away from UnbreakableDrew. Could go for a high, but hasn't chosen to yet. And I also might see him take some silicon. Might see him just completely stay away from it, as the silicon on this map is kind of bad and will be very difficult to make use of. But he is throwing a quarry out on one of them. He wants to go ahead and establish those base resources. He wants to grab up a little bit more aluminum. He's just looking to shoot through in upgrades to HQ level 3 very quickly, where we'll likely see him go ahead and put down the very, very standard reactors. UnbreakableDrew, on the other hand, hasn't sold any aluminum yet. He's trying to make, or at least not much aluminum, he's trying to make what steel he can. And he'll likely be pushing the HQ level 2 shortly. Claim auction coming out on day 1. We should see this pushed a bit higher than 9,000. I would expect it. I don't know if it'll get to that 20,000, that 28,000 that we saw earlier today in our match with Soren Johnson and King Morgan, but it looks like the players are going to be willing to push to that point. Will PB go for 28, or does UnbreakableDrew get to take up another extra claim for the mere price of $24,000 of debt? Looks like he is, so that's 2 extra claims on over to UnbreakableDrew. Very nice take for him. Unfortunately, his steel mills just aren't producing, and on top of that, because he has not been collecting significant amounts of iron in preparation for these steel mills, they're actually just sitting around burning money right now. He would in fact be better off, for the moment, selling the iron that he had already stockpiled or that he is pulling in, and then purchasing the steel based off of that rather than trying to make steel himself, as he does not have a significant number of adjacency bonuses. But nonetheless, UnbreakableDrew does manage to go ahead and push to HQ level 2. We'll have to see what he can do for that, but unfortunately for him, Pbhead already tearing ahead. He's managed to hit HQ level 3 right as his opponent hit level 2. Looks like he's going to establish another water pump for himself, an understandable decision, but I'm a little bit concerned if PB doesn't throw down some kind of production building in the near future. Silicon and water won't maintain their prices forever, and he's going to need to find some way to make money. It looks like PB completely disagreeing. He doesn't have any glass built up yet. He can obviously put furnaces down instead of his carbon if he needs to. He has a variety of potential plays to make, but some very strange play coming out of PB for himself so far. Just establishing all these basic resources, not really moving into any form of production from which he can try and make a significant amount of cash. Instead, just sitting on the basics and hoping those white will carry him through all the way to HQ level 4. A bit of an aggressive play, but it might work out just because he was already so far ahead of his opponent that he can maybe manage to pull it off. UnbreakableDrew, for example, has put down an electrolysis reactor, but with no adjacency bonuses, unfortunately, it is not making a significant amount of money. The steel mill still functional, not fantastic, but he is pulling in enough iron to cover that cost now. On top of that, PB has already managed to secure the 60 glass that he will need to upgrade, so his upgrade to HQ level 4 is absolutely guaranteed at this point. No use of the black market yet, because he understands he does not have the cash left over to grab something like an extra claim or a goon squad at the moment, and all he can really do is continue pushing for those further upgrades, or else he might fall into a situation where he has simply removed too much of his funds from the map, putting it into the black market, and he wouldn't have anything left over to actually push for the glass to upgrade. But for now, we'll see what he gets up to. Another claim auction for day 2, though, guys. It's interesting how many claim auctions we've had in these last few matches. They're kind of useful. I mean, it's nice to see them because they're fairly easy to understand, right? Everybody's just like, hey, that's an extra claim I get. Claims are fantastic. I like claims. Why not? Unbreakable Drew, once again, going to push for 24,000. It's a reasonable price for a claim in a lot of ways. It keeps his opponent from taking it, but he has to be careful pushing into as much debt as he wants to, given that he has not been as fast on the upgrades. Wow, 32,000 debt. Unbreakable Drew actually going to go ahead and push there. I imagine PB will just let this one go. Drew's price is once again, it's going to drop like a rock once more below the $5 start point for Unbreakable Drew at this point, with his $73,000 worth of debt still stuck on HQ level 4, is nowhere near the glass he's going to need to push to HQ level 3. Sorry, Unbreakable Drew still stuck on HQ level 2. Pbhead pushing to HQ level 4. Unbreakable Drew nowhere near the glass he is going to need to upgrade to HQ level 3. He's going to need these electrolysis reactors to do some serious work for him if he can press on through. But unfortunately for him, Pbhead also is already into electrolysis. His is far more efficient. He will be flooding those resources quite soon and completely destroying their prices on the market, forcing Unbreakable Drew possibly to make a transition before he's comfortable. Thankfully, Drew finally goes ahead, pulls through to HQ level 3, mostly on the back of that steel price. Steel generally staying expensive a bit longer than carbon does, and he manages to go ahead and push on through. So what are we going to see out of Unbreakable Drew? We've got a farm. We've got a little extra water. Not the worst ideas in general, especially because both players have electrolysis down. The farm, always a nice building at this stage where food is already up above $100. But we're going to see more and more commitments like this from Drew if he wants to hold on in this game, where he has about half of his stock price of his opponent. Pbhead, it looks like, has purchased an additional claim, hasn't exactly decided what to do with it yet. We also see, by the way, that Drew does have a little bit of power down, but is still leaking this $70 power, while PB, he has just enough power online still that he has not been collecting significant amounts of debt this game, and PB goes ahead and commits more of his cash into another additional claim. This is going to allow him to put 2 farms online to match Drew's food production and make sure no edge is taken by our expansive player this game. No glass production yet for either player is very interesting. Keeps making it harder and harder to push through those upgrades, especially as we've got these farms coming down, which are buying up more and more glass. We can see a single glass furnace right now would be making $20 on its own. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen either player try and make a transition that direction, given that the electrolysis reactors have all fallen off to the point where they're not making very much money. Steel is not making a whole lot of money. I would hope to see some glass furnaces coming online fairly soon, simply in order to take advantage of this ridiculously low silicon and oxygen price that we have going. Solar panels instead going to be coming online for PB. That's going to drive up the price of silicon just a bit, but not too much. He had most of what he needed to construct these panels online, and I'm curious if he's going to change his mind, switch up that decision, since we have seen a power surplus will be coming through fairly soon. Another claim auction. 3 in a row here. I wonder if PB is going to try and drive this to the point where Drew just kills himself on debt. He's been well on the way so far. Drew not going to take the risk. Just going to finally let PB go ahead and take one for the price of $24,000. Still a reasonable place to push your opponent for the claim. I'm glad to see Drew not just letting these go for $6,000 to $10,000 like we see some players do when they're too scared of their opponent letting them have that debt. It's a very solid play out of Drew, the response there. Unfortunately for him, he is still behind in HQ level. He is still not making as much money as his opponent is, especially as PB has already successfully made this glass transition. We are going to need to see something special come out of him soon, otherwise PB will just keep pushing on through to victory. Drew does finally catch up to in HQ levels. He's hit HQ level 4. He's got 5 claims available. We're going to have to see what he does with these. He throws down an additional electrolysis reactor. That's a bit of wishful thinking on his part, I think. PB has now moved out of his electrolysis and into glass, but it's because glass is so valuable and fuel really is not. These electrolysis reactors still sitting around burning money, and that is not going to change anytime soon. We would almost need to see Drew also make that transition into glass in order for him to manage to stay alive. PB, on the other hand, he is pulling in ridiculous amount of money off of these glass furnaces. He's got a goon squad established to protect himself from any potential EMPs out of Drew. Unfortunately, I just don't see Drew having the cash. Finally, we're seeing a glass furnace come down. That will be making some money, but not as much as it would have been about 3 minutes ago. And PB, I think, is going to come away with most of the profits off of the glass furnaces. We can see him already sitting up at a nice $120 value on glass. And finally, we see some stock buying coming down. PB wants to start making his move. He's not to a position where he can actually pressure Drew completely yet. But he is slowly making his way there, and we also see that the black market has started raining down from PB. Shutting down Drew's steel production, guaranteeing he'll have trouble upgrading. Shutting down the food production, ensuring that PB's food production will be able to get the benefit out of the high food price before Drew's is able to. PB also, during this time, just got a little stock buying done and then decided, you know what, I'll go ahead and push through to HQ level 5. Looks like he might have established, he has a lot of silicon down. He's just going to establish a little bit more water to compensate for the farms that are down and the reactors. He understands there's a lot of consumption going on. And he is also managing to purchase quite heavily into a carbon shortage that's going on right now. That is going to make PB a nice chunk of money. Drew has no chance of countering it in any way against a scavenger player. No carbon production of his own. No early warning on that. And that's going to be a nice boost to PB's just cash on hand. And it'll help him press through and try and make that kill happen on Drew a lot faster than he might have initially expected. Drew's still in it, still at HQ level 4, but he's still going to have to find some special way to fight back. Maybe with a hacker array, maybe with an interesting power-based play if that PB ever lets that get out of hand. There are options here. For example, turning off his geothermal plants and kind of forcing PB to deal with power. But unfortunately, PB has managed to, on the back of that shortage, push to about 60% of the way he needs to be to his opponent. Drew's starting to buy up his own stock, which will help elevate his price and make sure that PB can't quite finish it off. But things still aren't looking pretty for Drew at the moment. PB's starting to go on the offensive. We just see constant stock buys coming out right now from PB as much as he could, but he actually decides he is going to shift to the Offworld market to more or less secure the game for himself. Drew's going to have to make a very quick play into something very special in order to stay in this game, because PB is going to be sending up, it looks like, probably food at the very nice price of $545. That's going to be a lot of money headed PB's way, and it will help secure the game for him. Farms have come back up, though, partially in response, I imagine, to PB preparing for this Offworld market, maybe partially just because farms have been frozen out for so long, but we can see Drew's farms being quite effective at the moment. He's also got these steel mills available still, which are making a lot of money now that iron has dropped in price. So that's very nice for Drew. $53 per tile is nothing to sneeze at right now. On top of that, PB, if his buildings stop making him money, he will have a lot of trouble transitioning into anything else right now because of building the Offworld market. He's pushed carbon's price up to $84. Some of his carbon has been frozen out. He's going to have to first secure these additional carbon tiles to make sure he has access to plenty of carbon so that he is not paying a ridiculous amount of money just to put down any additional buildings he might require this game. As we can see that his glass furnaces have dropped to the point of being worth only about $26. If Drew can manage to keep his farms frozen and get to the point where those aren't making any money as well, then he can still press into this. But things are looking quite grim for him at the moment. PB holding 6 of his shares, Drew only holding 2 of them. It's going to be very difficult to pull back from that at this point. All right, guys. We're just waiting for this launch right now. It's about 64% of the way there. I imagine with this Offworld launch, people will be able to secure at least 2 more shares in Drew. I don't know if it'll quite get the kill on its own, but it combined with all of this food production, all of this carbon production that PB just pulled in a large amount of money from, could still manage to secure the game for PB very, very soon. Energy Vault patent. A little bit awkward at this point. It's really not that big a deal. PB, we can see, continuing to go on the offensive with Black Market, despite the fact that he has the game almost entirely secure. He wants to take no chances, shut down everything of Drew's that he possibly can that might allow him an edge. Go ahead and push for those buys. We see the red button come down. Pbhead's going to take game 1 in this best of 3 with a rather convincing victory. Just a solid lead the whole way through. Knew exactly the transitions he was trying to make, had a clear plan to go ahead and clean up the game, and PB got it done. Still well played by Drew to hold on so long against PB after taking on so much debt initially. Maybe just, once again, strong enough to take down a lot of public game players, but not quite enough to take down someone of PB's caliber in game 1. He's going to have to step it up in game 2 if he wants to be able to actually take one off of PB or even push to the series victory and turn it around 2-0 in these next 2 games. Let's go ahead and check out resources for that game. We can see Pbhead making a clean 150,000 on world. Very well done. Selling off world as well for another 50,000 on top of that. You have to wonder if it's really worth it when the off world only sends once. But that said, it's still security for the future. In case something had gone wrong for PB, he would always have access to that off-world for the rest of the game, simply needing to potentially refresh the Goon Squad on it occasionally. And it's very nice security, so even though it's questionable whether or not the off-world actually turned a profit, at minimum, it made sure that just in case the first send didn't do it, the second, third, or fourth certainly would. So still not a bad move by PB, even if in this particular game, it was a bit questionable. Unbreakable Drew, on the other hand, he started to manage to set up the economy. He caught up in HQ levels, generally speaking. But as an expansive player, he was maybe a bit slow to get to those upgrades. He wasn't particularly successful in making money since so much of what he was doing was focused around going ahead and getting to those upgrades. And he didn't have the opportunity really to actually attack PB or even defend his own stock price at that point because he just didn't have the cash on hand. If he'd been a bit more successful in making money, he could have purchased his stock when it was low after he had acquired all of that debt, kept holding on and holding on and holding on, and allowing his expansive bonuses to carry him on through. But the game was far too short for that. He did not get to use any of that advantage, and he simply fell out of it after only making about $40,000 that game. If we go ahead and take one little look at the black market, we can see Unbreakable Drew doing a little bit, getting an EMP, getting a power surge, getting a goon squad. He's willing to use it, but I imagine if we go over to the side of PB, we're going to see a lot more than 21,000 spent on the black market. 67,000 spent on the black market by PB. 10 uses of that, including 3 claims and 3 goon squads. Very confident in his ability to beat down his player without focusing too much of his efforts on disrupting what they're trying to do, just enhancing himself, securing himself against his opponent, doing the EMPs and power surges when they were going to be able to be used quite well. But other than that, just making sure that he was secure in what he was doing and he would be able to press through and just rely on himself to win the game rather than his opponent making mistakes or getting shut out. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for game number 1. The players are probably hanging out impatiently waiting for a lobby to go up, so let's go ahead and get them set up for that and we'll move on into game number 2.